How you doing?
Something I've been wanting to do on this channel every now and again is responding to the absolutism articles coming from certain media outlets like Screen Rant. For my recent subscribers, I will also be giving a quick update at the end of the video. I simply want sites like this to do better! Yes, in case you were wondering, they wrote this article after Rings of Power came out because they'll shit on whatever they have to defend that piece of crap garbage. I can't count the amount of times I've seen the likes of Screen Rant or IGN, to name a couple of examples, pumping out absolutely ridiculous reviews for garbage movies and TV shows, and it simply
grinds my gears.
It's kind of surprising that these media outlets are still on the hardcore unauthenticity train, despite million-plus subscriber YouTube channels calling them out for years. IGN seems to be turning a leaf after the Pandaverse South Park episode, but changing from a 100% bullshit shill company to something resembling the idea of being reputable takes time. They'll call something an 8 out of 10 right after it comes out, but shit on it 2 weeks later. Their opinions about a movie, show, or video game will flip on a dime, showing they have no standards at all. How can you give Lord of the Rings a 9.9 out of 10 and give She-Hulk a 7? There is a much bigger gap in quality there, my guys. What are you doing? I'm sorry, but it's actually much worse than that, because I accidentally looked up the review to the finale and not the review to the whole show. They gave She-Hulk an 8, and Lord of the Rings a 9.9. What the fuck? Screen Rant pops up in my Google recommended all the time, and some of their titles make me physically cringe. They, like so many of these companies, hold some absolutely shit opinions, and I don't understand how they still generate the kind of traffic they get. Yes, I know I'm part of the problem by clicking on some of them, but I hope to turn some of that into a positive by taking the time to respond here. So Screen Rant released an article a little while ago titled, "Lord of the Rings, new movie is exactly what the franchise needs after 10 years. So before even moving past the title, we have some shit to respond to. Screen Rant, what do you mean by a new movie is exactly what the franchise needs? Why does it need anything at all? I'm pretty sure the 3 main films are still pretty easily accessible in either theatrical or the correct extended edition, so I'm really having a hard time understanding why the franchise needs anything at all, really. Was Rings of Power exactly what the franchise needed? It's actually pretty embarrassing that any self-respecting media news outlet would defend something of such poor quality. It lost a lot of money, by the way. A lot. And before you jump down my throat, dear viewer, I understand monetary gains are not an indication of value, but the entire internet was screaming we did not want that show.
Get away from
The Lord of the Rings.
you, bitch!
A funny thing about sites or YouTube channels like Screen Rant is the only way they can prop up the new stuff is by shitting on the old. Most people who defend garbage resort to this tactic. It doesn't work. It's classic whataboutism, which portrays weak mental fortitude. And when all else fails, pull the diversity card. Screen Rant has an article talking about how non-diverse the trilogy was, and how some new thing has an opportunity to fix that so-called problem. I won't bore you to death by responding to every line in every paragraph here, because it looks like it was written by a 10-year-old. I don't know if this is how Screen Rant writes most of their articles, but this guy is legitimately writing this like I wrote my class responses in college. If you don't know, you'll have a minimum word count, and the professor doesn't actually give a shit outside of participation, so you will write a paragraph stretched to the max. This article reads like, "An animated Lord of the Rings will allow the movie more budgetary freedom. It is animated, which means it is not live action. I like that it is not live action, because animation could be cheaper in production. If it were live action, it would be more expensive, which is the opposite of cheaper. If you didn't know, cheaper is better than more expensive, and more expensive means more money, which is not less money."
Okay.
Shut the fuck up!
If you don't think it's that bad, pause the video and read this actual bit from the article that I'm parodying. Okay, I have more to say about this title, but let's see where the article takes us first. Bullet number 1. The Lord of the Rings, War of the Rohirrim, will bring audiences back to theaters, making the franchise's first theatrical event in a decade. Okay, the first bullet point is fair. A new movie in theaters will potentially bring audiences back into theaters for the first time in a decade. Alright, you got me there. But have you considered that if you played the Peter Jackson trilogy in theaters, it would put butts in seats and you don't even have to make a new movie for that? I know I'd go have an IMAX screen of Lord of the Rings take me like a virgin on prom night.
God, it's so fucking cool.
I imagine I'm not alone here. But this begs the question, why do we need new Lord of the Rings content at all? We have an absolutely timeless story that has maintained cultural relevancy for over 20 years, and it's not going anywhere. Are people still talking about the Rings of Power? No, that shit fell off the face of the earth as quickly as it came out. People only talk about Rop when they're memeing on it because nobody who has an ounce of respect for the Lord of the Rings trilogy or just basic storytelling takes that shit seriously. It slides right into what so many other new renditions of old franchises have been categorized: non-canon. All new Disney Star Wars outside of Andor, the Halo TV show, Indiana Jones, Marvel Phase 4 and 5, Rings of Power, Terminator, the list goes on and on. It's getting kind of hard to keep track of how many of these franchises have gone down the drain in the past few years. Most people don't give a shit who has the rights to an IP anymore because our old franchises are very rarely cared for by the new corporate overlords who have enough money to arbitrarily buy the rights to something they didn't create. This mentality that we need new things from old stuff is just silly. Bullet number 2. The anime style of the film gives the franchise more stylistic and budgetary freedom, allowing for bigger risks and ambitious inclusions. Let's be real here. Major studios these days have no problem taking risks. It's like these companies just love throwing money in the garbage, so they don't need to use animation for an excuse to do that. To be clear, I am not going to shit on animation. When used well, it can be amazing. Arcane is phenomenal, and I wouldn't care for a live-action adaptation of it, but when it comes to doing anything new with Lord of the Rings, I worry. And I have very good reasoning for it. Let's move on from this, because this just feels like filler for their article. I also kind of covered how ridiculous this section was when I was trolling it. Bullet number 3. The success of War of the Rohirrim will give confidence to other upcoming Lord of the Rings movies, showing that there is still demand for feature films in the franchise. Okay, my dude, listen. There isn't a demand for more movies in the Lord of the Rings universe. We have the story we got, and we love it. The trilogy is very easily accessible. Super nuts, but the visuals hold up extremely well even today. The Balrog will always be the fucking coolest CGI fantasy monster. With a name that will most likely never be surpassed.
A Balrog.
And the story is timeless. The script will always hold up, more so than most of the stuff coming out today. Most of us realize newer doesn't mean better, especially nowadays. The list of stuff we used to love getting ruined continues to grow, and Lord of the Rings fans just won't stand for it. Like I already mentioned, when Rings of Power was announced, YouTube channels were created to fight back against this blasphemy.
This is madness!
Less than 40% of viewers who started this show actually finished it. That's fucking terrible. Look up the audience retention if you don't believe me. You can blow it all you want, Screen Rant, but the people weren't buying what Amazon was selling, and this will become more and more apparent as time goes on. Amazon foolishly committed to 5 seasons of that hot garbage, and man oh man am I excited to watch it fade into obscurity every time it comes out. The point of all this pish is, with the Peter Jackson trilogy, we struck lightning in a bottle. Or lightning struck the same spot 3 times. Or lightning struck in 3 separate bottles. Or 3 beer bottles were thrown at a lightning strike. Whichever works better here. We got the best trilogy ever made, and it is okay for things to end. Not every single good story needs to or should get milked to death. Many people's brains have become conditioned to always desperately crave the next thing. But the folks that aren't TikTok brained understand any new addition to something so great will only muddy the waters. There are better ways to release your endorphins, people. The new thing could be someone's first experience with Lord of the Rings. Rings of Power was some people's first experience with the universe, and anyone who wants to check out Lord of the Rings needs to just watch the trilogy or read the books. A lot of people I know, myself included, will get so burnt out on garbage coming out these days and just rewatch the Lord of the Rings trilogy again to remember what awesome movies are like. Go away with this nonsense and just make original crap. I want a dedicated author like Tolkien to come along and have the tenacity to create their own world, making something just as timeless in their own way. But I guess Tolkien's fortitude was forged in the trenches of World War I, so an author like that doesn't come around very often. We won't be able to find out anyways who has that kind of talent and patience if we just keep bringing back old shite for modern audiences, casting directors and letting the writing take a back seat. Writing. The script is the bones of the story. Without it, the whole thing falls into a big pile of meat and fleshy nastiness. Okay, I just wanted to make this video to get my voice out there in no matter how small of a fashion, and to say,
Keep my
Lord of the Rings.
out your fucking mouth!
Could the new movie be good? Of course, and I hope it is. But I guess I am a bit more cynical these days because I have a lot of evidence supporting my mentality on topics like this.
So to sum this all up, Screen Rant.
Shut the fuck up!
Alrighty then, thank you for coming by to check out this video. I don't expect responses like this to be the majority of my content, but sometimes I see a headline and I really want to talk about it, and my wife is not even close to as much of a nerd as I am, so I'm going to take it out on you folks. And to my recent subs, I'm still working on my comparison of Andor and Ahsoka Episode 2. Do not you worry. December was a little busy for me, but good things on the way. So with all that, thank you for watching, Happy New Year, and I'll catch you at the next video.